Got a nice view back there.
All right, it's recording. So, welcome back to another episode of Shtajio's vlog. I am Henry Thurlow, and I have two guests today. So, Stephen.
You're pointing at Rejean, though.
On your computer, but on my computer, I'm
on mine. It's me, but on yours,
here,
it's
I'll introduce both of you. We got Stephen Murphy and we got Rejean Dubois. Right? Did I pronounce that right, Rejean?
Yeah, that's correct.
All right. So for those who know, Shtajio anime studio here in Japan, in Tokyo, Japan. I'm an animator / director here, and then Stephen is the CG director here, CG guy, and then Rejean is the character designer. Rejean's only been on one episode of this so far, so this is the second time we're having you, I think, right, Rejean?
Yeah.
So this is episode 49. Next one will be 50. It's pretty impressive. What has happened since last time? Dayart worked on the newest episode of Boruto, 204. I say Dayart did. I was the only person that did at the studio, but nevertheless, check it out. Dayart's right there in the credits. It's a pretty good episode. Also, you know the Ichiban Kujis, like you at the convenience stores, like you pick a little card and then you see if you won something, but you never win something. You always like just get a clear file or something, and then you end up spending.
Sometimes.
Yeah.
Like I did the Dragon Ball Super Kuji at the convenience store, and I got what was it? What was it called? I got the Goku with the white hair, Ultra Instinct Goku.
Was that like, oh really? So
the actual figure, it's like this big.
Awesome. Well then actually we have the same story, because this time I bought one and I actually got the number one
oh nice
Luffy figure.
Nice.
There was like a One Piece one going on, and I literally bought one, and I was like, here it goes. I'm gonna get like a spoon or something, and then I just picked up one, and it was like, oh my god, that's like the number one thing.
Nice.
Cool. So on this week's episode, I figured we could just nerd out a little bit. Arthel and I, Arthel, who we vlog viewers have not seen for months now because he's busy, to be fair. But Arthel and I used to just do this one-on-one totally. And so we covered a lot of topics about like what anime we liked and just were fans of, what anime influenced us the most, what anime creators, like the names did we like the most. And we had like separate episodes for every single one of those topics, but you guys never got to tackle those things. So I figured we could just talk about that for a little while. So here, I'll take the lead, but then I'll kick it over to you guys. And I think the anime fans out there are probably interested to hear how creators also feel about anime and what anime inspired them and got them to want to be in the industry, right? So I've mentioned before that like I watched the Spawn series in the States. That's not anime really, although Madhouse did help animated fully the third season of that. But then from there, I was like, oh my God, I want more of these cool, like violent cartoons. Went to my local video store and found that, America doesn't produce those things, but Japan does. And so I just got into anime that way. So I rented all the old OVAs, the Guyver and Yoma and Genocyber, of course, then Ghost in the Shell came out, Ninja Scroll and all those things, right? But some titles I think so for those who've watched all the vlog episodes, you've already heard me say that, but like there's some titles I think, I didn't really make clear the true influence of, like the Record of Lodoss War. The Record of Lodoss War OVA series was huge for me. That was like the first one where I started recognizing specific artists. So I would always get the anime, but it would just be like, oh, this is cool Japanese anime, right? But when I got Record of Lodoss War, first of all, I was like, this is the greatest thing ever. Because the Lord of the Rings movies weren't out at that time, right? They were still like very far off. And so there was no like super fantasy thing like that, really. It was like a Dungeons and Dragons type. There's an elf, there's a warrior, there's a, axe wielder and all magic users and all that stuff, dragons. But Record of Lodoss War did it so good. and the quality was just outrageous. And when I was watching that, I forget which one I watched first, but I remember linking the character designer, Nobu Teruyuki, to other things that he'd done. So like the Battle Angel OVA series, I was like, you know, anime is so unique and has so many unique styles, but like, I swear, man, like the noses in this are the same as the noses in this, which aren't the same as all the other OVAs I watched. Like there's something about this that's just super unique. I swear the same person drew these two pictures, right? The way that Nobu Teruyuki like makes really thick eyelashes and just the way he draws faces, the detail that he put on stuff. I was like, I swear this is the same person. And then that led me to actually looking it up and figuring out that it was the same person, which wasn't as easy to do back then that it is now. You could do a quick search on your phone, but back then it was like, you know, it was kind of hard. But yeah, and then when I found out it was the same person, then I wanted to watch everything that person did. So Escaflowne and the Escaflowne movie, and then different OVAs. What is it? Battle Royale High School. Was one that he in the 80s did like animation direction on, or character design, something like that on, and then Cleopatra. Anyway, so that I think it was Nobu Teruyuki that got me into following specific artists. And then I broke away from just watching OVAs when I started buying VHS of probably, I mean, I was always into Dragon Ball Z, but the other TV series that got me out of just the OVAs was Rurouni Kenshin. Rurouni Kenshin, I started buying those and I was like, oh my God, this is so good. I've never seen anything like that. And that even got me to start researching like Japanese history. So I could just keep rambling, but I want to kick it over to you guys. But like those details I hadn't explained before, I don't think. So what is your guys here? Steven, start with you real quick. What anime did you first see? Why'd you love it? And just talk about some nerdy stuff. Go.
Well, the quickest answer I think would be it was a Hokuto no Ken, but in America it'd be called Fist of the North Star.
Yeah.
And it was high school. No, it was middle school. And there was this kind of popular kid. His name was Matt Uchida, and he was like half Japanese, half American. His father was always going back and forth to Japan. And when his father came back, he would have like these VHS tapes. And of course, Matt would bring them to school, and we'd be in the school library. And for younger audience, tapes are these big, giant plastic things that would have reels of film.
They're gonna have to Google that.
Yeah.
You're gonna have to do some of your own research here, folks.
Yeah, and there was like 3 TVs that were available to us in the library during school, and you could only use the TVs for educational purposes. But Matt would be like, put these unlabeled tapes into the thing, and of course it'd be like these big giant super Hellenistic looking dudes just doing crazy karate, and then the guys' heads would be exploding. And that was my first exposure to like anime. And I was like, what is this? Of course, there's Transformers and the Pee-wee's Playhouse and things on Saturday morning cartoons, which were pretty trippy to begin with. But this was the first time you saw violence, or you saw nudity, or you saw like any sexual situations. Like I'd never seen that in animation before. And so for me, that's what really got me hooked. And then around that similar time, anime started becoming a little bit, it was still niche, but it started catching on to the mainstream on cable television. So like Sci-Fi Channel would like be like Saturday at 12 o'clock in the afternoon would show Vampire Hunter D. And I remember watching that, and I was at home by myself Saturday morning. It was raining outside. No one was home. My mom was off working, whatever. And so outside it was already dark and rainy and stormy. And at the time I was living in California, like, where you can kind of see like the forests like that, and so outside versus what I'm watching on TV was just like this perfect like synergy of like just how I was feeling in the moment and watching this weird apocalyptic movie that had an apocalypse on top of it. But then there's vampires and mutants, and just a masterpiece of a movie. And that, I think that was the movie that really like caught me and hooked me into the world of anime, and I think that's what I got for you.
We'll go back with some questions and stuff, but let's kick it over to Rejean. Rejean, how about you?
Damn, like
man,
first, yeah, I can't do it, man. But what was it? Shout outs to my brother Tony Little, because he was the one that introduced me to anime. And what was it in Compton? We had this comic shop near Avalon. What was it? Avalon, Carson. It was Carson City or Carson Mall, and they would sell these bootleg anime tapes. And it wasn't, it would literally say have the like, the white tape on it, and it would say like Akira or something, a black M66, and they were like all $10. And my brother would buy these and he would show them to me, and I was just like blown away, especially with Akira, that one, and what was it, Black M66, Clash of the Binoids, which was actually Macross, Round My Half. Man, there's so many to name. But that was probably around 1990, and then over the years, there was a friend I met in junior high school, and he's a Japanese guy, and he told me about this. What was it? It was a Japanese supermarket not too far from our area. But before that, he would bring the Japanese version of Shonen Jump to school. And so, it's like this, because, Shonen Jump is like, it's like a Bible, and it's like about this big, and it's about this thick. And I was just looking through it like, oh my God, what is all this stuff? I mean, I'd seen Dragon Ball at some point in like video game magazines. But looking through that, at the time it was the Dragon Ball, Yu Yu Hakusho, Rurouni Kenshin, Ninku, Slam Dunk. And
Ninku, that's a cool
one. Yeah. But just even before that, I was already into it, but it was just at the time in the early 90s, there wasn't much out there. As Stephen was saying, it was very niche at the time. And you can only find stuff usually at like small comic book shops, or maybe you come across some person who had a bunch of bootleg stuff without subtitles. But yeah, oh man. But it wasn't just like anime and then manga, but also video games. The art of I think one of my biggest ones was like Capcom illustrators in the early 90s, like Kinu Nishimura and Akima, Bengal, aka CRMK, and then SNK artists like Nona and Shinkiro. But man, they all had like some congruency of just this feeling that I liked. And even like like with Dragon Ball, Akira Toriyama also working in the game industry as well, and is still doing that today.
Yeah.
But yeah, everything like whether it be game concept art, manga, and anime, it was just all. I think before that, I was really into like Disney and Looney Tunes, and Tex Avery was like one of my favorite. Oh yeah, Ren and Stimpy, that was one of my favorites.
Oh yeah, John K.
Yeah, John K. Oh man, I still love Ren and Stimpy. It's so freaking awesome.
Space Madness. And
yes.
Ren and Stimpy's like original episodes. There's it's the same thing with it's the same thing with was it Chuck Jones, like the old Warner Brothers stuff? Like there's something like they got down to like the most perfect jokes. Like I think like they knew that their time was limited, and that there wasn't a lot of people that even had their own shows and could control the stuff, and so they just worked so hard. And like so the old Bugs Bunny cartoons, you go watch those now and still just burst out laughing. Like the newer like anything done in all the years, like the 90s and the 2000s, and now like okay, maybe they're funny, maybe they're not, but like if you go back to the old ones, it's like you're just laughing the whole time through. It's like everything is timed so perfectly. They just and like the first season at least of Ren and Stimpy was like that. It was like the episode where he gets like the metal helmet on his head, and then
happy joy.
Like it's like I watched that as I watched it as a kid and I'm just laughing. Oh, it's silly, they're acting silly. But I watched it as an adult and I was almost pissing myself on the ground. Like, and even if I watched it right now, I do the same thing. Like he straps a device to the dude's head that makes him lose control of his body, so he can't move and can only smile. But he hates what's happening, and he's raging, like, I'm gonna get out. But while he's like crying and like bashing his own head with a hammer, Stimpy is like like he doesn't see anything's wrong, and he's just dancing, and like his butt is like
it's like bouncing off
in
the
all the
ground.
directions with this ridiculous dance. So there's like a shot where like it's not even like a well composed like shot when it comes to like perspective or anything. It's just like, here's the ground plane and here's two characters, but like Ren is just like bashing his head, and Stimpy's on the ground with like his butt cheeks going in different directions, spinning, and like it's the funniest looking shot ever. You can't look at that and not just like just fall down laughing.
And like the record's playing, and it's got like this crazy esoteric stuff going on. Like
crazy.
It's like, I'll teach your grandmother to suck eggs and stuff like that. It's like, what is this?
Yeah.
Rocco's Modern Life was good too.
Another great one. Yeah, I love Rocco.
Yeah.
I watched every episode. They did a movie of it recently.
I know. I
like
didn't watch that yet.
It was okay, but it's like, it's almost like it's one of those things where it's like an episode regular in the 90s. You never would have guessed that it came out like only a couple of years ago and stuff like that. And it's all the same voice actors and all stuff like that. But yeah.
Back to the main topic, anime. Although this is fine too. It's kind of just a nerdy episode. We're just talking about stuff. But that's true what you said, Rejean, about games having equally as big of an influence as like anime. Because actually, even just looking back, like now it might be different because I have a lot of Genga like keyframe books. Like for the most part, for most of my life, I had way more video game related books. All the SNK books with Shinkido, right? And then Capcom Guilty Gear books. Like I just had like tons and tons of game character designs. Also Xenosaga and different RPGs and stuff like that. But I have tons and tons of Amano books, and like it's all just Amano's painting, so it's not even really like the video games look. But because of Final Fantasy, I got into Amano. So like, games were also like equally as big. I feel like I don't know.
I gotta share you what I didn't even realize who it was. I'm thinking of the other guy, the guy who created Final Fantasy, Sakaguchi-san. Amano is the guy who did Vampire D. I'm sorry, I got the two confused.
Well, Amano has done. Yeah, he did. Amano
he did do a Vampire D stuff too, right?
Yeah, Amano is the illustrator for all the Vampire Hunter D books, and so therefore the main character is the designer of Vampire Hunter D, and then also like the logo designer for all Final Fantasies. But early on in Final Fantasy, especially 6 in particular, like the whole thing is his style. So he also has done design work for the actual things. Funny Amano story, and I'll just go off on a tangent because this is just the nerdy episode. So I always go to the Hideyuki Kikuchi Talk Live event. Hideyuki Kikuchi is the author.
Yeah, I went to one of those with you.
Yes. Yeah. So he's the author of Vampire Hunter D. At one of them, he told a story which is really funny. Amano, so in the first Vampire Hunter D book, if you read it, apparently, because I don't read the books, I watch the anime, but like the first book doesn't describe D's character design as the D that we all know, with like the long hair and like the like almost like woman looking face, right? Like super pale, the first book has like a totally different description. It's like, here's this guy with short hair and he's strong and like probably Fist of the North Star character or something, right? And then Amano was decided as the illustrator for all the pages in the book, right? And the cover. And so Amano takes the script and then just sends all these paintings. And Hideyuki Kikuchi is like, what is this? This doesn't look like the guy in the thing at all. This is all wrong. Like, this doesn't look anything like it. And Amano's just like, those are your illustrations. But why did you make me? Like, this isn't what the guy looks like. But it was like too late, and Amano is expensive, and they were like, all right, well, I guess these are the illustrations. This is illustrations of this long-haired vampire character that doesn't appear in my book. Wow. But then that got, like, the first book sold like crazy and became super famous, and everyone loved the image, right? And like the cover, and people bought the posters of it, and they're like, we love this character. God, what an awesome looking design. Posters everywhere of this character. So then Hideyuki Kikuchi is like, well, I guess that's what he looks like. Screw it. And then did that from the second book on. He's like, I guess that's what the character looks like. So that's Amano did have massive influence. He's not just the illustrator. He via this ridiculous story like made the character design as it is now.
And of course, hindsight is 2020, because if you look at a lot of Amano's work, all the characters are very androgynous, ephemeral-looking creatures. So
I
of
bet
course
he does that with I bet he gets so many orders that like don't ask for that, and he's just like, there you go. And again and again and again, they're just like, why do you do this? And he's just like, I'm giving you whatever I want. Like this, I'm Amano. Like,
Which is great, because like if you ever watch that movie like Final Fantasy: The Spirits Within, like everybody looks like they work at Staples or something.
Hey,
they don't
this things, but I don't know, like they took a big chance, and I think that them making that resulted in video games and 3D CG getting kicked up to the level of realism that it is now. It was like a big step to even just attempt to make that level of realism back then. And then when they saw, even if the movie wasn't great, when people saw you could do it, and here's how you could do it, because they figured it out in that movie, it had a massive influence. So that's not like the ultimate flop story that some might think it is. Like that was a major necessary stepping stone in the overall department of the world.
Financially it was, but technological wise, it was definitely. What else? Well, I mean, yeah, I think on the topic of the games, because that was another thing for me. Like in middle school, it was collecting all the monstrous compendiums from Dungeons and Dragons. I never played Dungeons and Dragons, but I just collected the monstrous compendiums because I loved all the illustrations of all the different types of dragons and ifrits and golems, stuff like that. Because I always thought like there's one dragon. It's like no, there's bog dragons, there's ice dragons, and stuff. And so to piggyback off of that, I started looking at all of the Capcom illustrations from Biohazard. I loved all the monsters and the zombie illustrations, and then of course as time went on, like I love the Biohazard 5 book. At this point, I'm obviously graduate university, but I love the Biohazard 4 and Biohazard 5 book. I mean, those are just some of the coolest like monster designs and stuff like that. And in what was the one game was Zone of the Enders? Oh, it was his name? I think Yoshimura.
Shinkawa Yoji.
Yeah, Yoji, that's it. Shtajio Yoji. I've seen him paint live. I love all his earlier stuff. Like he's another one that's just like super cool stuff. And I watched him. He just takes like gouache or like just 3 color tones, and it just goes, and like within 20 minutes, it's got Solid Snake's face or Anubis or whatever. So yeah, I collect a ton of artwork.
Real loud in your thing. Tell him to shush. That's yours.
Oh.
Yeah. Tell him. Keep it down.
Oh, I can't tell the people at work here to be quiet. what am I, the boss of this company?
Say,
I think so. My mic didn't work. Well, actually, they need to communicate, because they gotta. So in this case, to the audience there, you're getting a little hint or a little taste of production in action.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So let me ask you guys this. Do you guys watch just the anime OVAs and stuff, or the super long series? I know Rejean watches the super long series, but like, when did you get into that? Because my story, it was like Dragon Ball Z was fine, but then Rurouni Kenshin opened the floodgates, because everything else was either an OVA or like a one core 12 or 13 episode series. Like when I bought Serial Experiments Lane back in the day on VHS,
oh god,
talking about.
I need to watch that again.
I still have the opening titles in the head. It's like Layer 1. It's
so good. You know what? The first that series, the first like 6, the first 6 or 7 episodes, was like perfect, and then it got into some weirdness for me personally, but like the first like 5 or 6, 7 episodes of that is like one of the probably best. But I guess like I didn't know the difference between like an OVA series and then a TV series, right? Because they were all fairly short. I could tell like was it Blue Seed was a TV series, because that was 26 episodes, and so
Soul Bianca was another one.
But like there was a lot of those 12 episode series, one core series, and I didn't know back then. But whether it was 1 episode or 12 episodes or 26 episodes, like you could handle that kind of, right? But I think your fandom takes another leap when you say, okay, I'm okay with 170 episodes, right? And then you're just watching like day after day after day. And so yeah, Rurouni Kenshin was the one that did that for me. And then I was like, well, screw it. If I'm doing this, then I'll watch all the other long ones too, Yu Yu Hakusho and everything like that. So Rejean, how about explain the next chapter of your anime story? So your brother shows you all these VHS, but then when do you say, screw it, I'm watching tons and tons of stuff?
Oh man, I don't even remember when that started, but because there's a lot of manga, of course, a lot of anime that, of course, that comes from manga. I don't really remember what the first series I watched. Man, but I remember probably the early 2000s. I kind of thought in my head, like, I don't want to watch anime that comes from manga. I'll just read the manga instead. Because usually they'll either what do you call it? They'll add what is that called when they add stuff? There's like a word for it.
People call it filler nowadays.
Filler. Yeah, they use filler or they'll cut a lot of things. But at the same time, I mean, I think the first one I watched after a long time was Shingeki no Kyojin, probably like 7 years ago. But usually I would just stick to anything that was original anime. I think probably the reason was anime like Dragon Ball and Death Note. Like, I didn't like how Dragon Ball added so much filler, and like you couldn't really read at your own pace. It's like, the whole Cell arc, it kind of slows down at the point in the anime after what was it? Where they go into the time room and then
before the Cell games?
Yeah, it was like 10 days before the Cell game. But in the anime, it slows down quite a bit. And it's like it's kind of cool because you see kind of like the in-betweens and stuff like that. But in the manga, it's like a couple pages and then you're back, to the Cell fight. And it was stuff like that. And then Death Note on that end, I love Takeshi Obata's work. And I love the story of Death Note. But seeing the anime, they would cut a lot of things that were in the manga. And, it was things like that made me kind of like, kind of shun anything that came from manga in anime. If it was
that leaves you with very few options, especially nowadays. I mean, do you watch any of the long series then, though? Because like, if I think of the long series, pretty much maybe literally every long series is based off of a manga, right? One Piece, Naruto, Dragon Ball Z, Yu Yu Hakusho, Hunter x Hunter. I mean, Slam Dunk, like, anything that's.
I mean, there was some things outside of that, like Noain back in the day. I don't believe that came from a manga. I think that was just straight.
Yeah, I love that one. I talked about that one. I really love that one. I love the director, but that was only like 24 episodes. That wasn't like
yeah, stuff like that. Like I like that, like Gurren Lagann, Samurai Champloo. It's just it's just one season and then it's over, and then you kind of move on to something else, I guess. I get terrified of things that are long. I know we've talked about that. So you want me to get into the One Piece?
You like stuff that came from Gainax and Manglobe, but
yeah,
they're gone, dude. They're gone. They are no more. Bones seemed to be a studio that might have been interested in doing some original stuff, but then recently I don't think they have much either. Maybe you'd like recent Wit, right? Because Wit, ever since dropping Shingeki no Kyojin, has been doing original stuff. That was like what they really wanted to do, which is why one of the reasons why they didn't want to continue Shingeki no Kyojin. So your options aren't that open nowadays, though. I agree, though, there should be more original stuff. It is cool. I like that. Noin is a perfect example. That's A+.
Yeah, that was a good one.
Steven, you got something?
Yeah, but it's
I don't
like
know. I was
oh,
just when I hear Gynex, there's like two things that pop into my head. There's that like they guess they had like a not Comic-Con, but it was like Daikon, and like they had like ELO play, and like it's like the craziest like cocaine induced like
That's how they started.
montage.
They
Yeah,
they were like a group of students or amateurs at least, and they made those. I mean, they were super super skilled, obviously,
yeah.
but then they made those openings for like two or three of those conventions in a row, and
It was like
everyone was like,
Daikon
this
3 or 4.
team is like unbelievable. And so then they were like, uh well, we're big and famous and all that stuff, like let's make a project. And then they made Wings of Hanamais, which
Yeah,
I
yeah.
you've mentioned again and again, Stephen.
Yeah, here's the thing. I highly recommend everyone watch that movie. Like that movie is so boring, but it's so beautiful and I love it. I love the movie. It's basically like this alternate Earth, like where it's like Japan gets into space before the Americans do it. And but the rocket, the science and the heike, the illustrations, I mean, all of that stuff, it's so technical and it's so beautiful. The soundtrack is very minimal, but it's a perfect movie to watch like if you have the flu, you're homesick and you want to have some like nice soup and then just watch it. It's such a good meditative film. The second
oh,
Pat Libor movie's like that as well.
just a plug, but Wings of Hamayanis is
Oh man, these
actually
eyes, you had to correct
it's
our
on
spelling. Your
yeah,
Amiames.
I didn't know, actually. I didn't know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
it's on I just saw a few days ago. It's on Netflix. So yeah, if anybody has Netflix, you can go watch it on there.
It's
Yeah.
good. It's good. It's really good.